and he will explain us why 86% of blockchain implementation projects fail.
Okay, I'll just do a sound check. I hope you can hear me fine.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And so, yeah, indeed, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew van Niekerk. I'm going to the co-founder and CEO of a company called SettleMint. We focus on making blockchain easy for everybody. So what I wanted to focus on today are some of the reasons that companies are struggling to get into production with, and by failure, it's a bit of a provocative title, but by failure, I mean it's not generating business value because it's not in production. So there's a lot of experimentation going on, but getting into production can be quite a challenge. So what I hope to share today are some of the pitfalls for blockchain transformation projects that can be, what are they, first of all? And secondly, how can they be avoided? So yeah, indeed, in 2020, Gartner did a survey of about 450 companies that are actively working on blockchain implementations. And in that study, what they found is that the majority of the companies that are really working on blockchain technology and implementations and all kinds of different use cases, be that self-sovereign identity or asset tokenization or something else, those companies that are really in the thick of it, really working with the technology, firmly believe, or the vast majority of them firmly believe that blockchain and DLT are ready for production. It's the technology is at a level that it's production ready, it's mature enough, and it's ready to go. They also believe that blockchain technology deployment can have a significant impact on their business model and lead to positive bottom line impact. So with the fact that they believe that it's ready for production, and they believe that it's going to have a significant impact on the way that they do business and the revenue generation they can have. So why are only 14% of them actually going to production? And that's what we're going to focus on today. But before diving directly into the topic, there is a bit of a caveat, also a silver lining and some good news. The same study was done by Gartner in 2019. And at that time, they found that only 5% of companies were going into production. So those that are doing experiments in R&D in 2019, only 5% went into production. In 2020, that grew to about 14% going into production. So 2020 saw a 3x increase in the probability or propensity to move from research activities into productive use. And as was mentioned by the previous speaker, with their ambition to go live in later this year, I do believe that 2021 will see another 2 to 3 times increase in the findings. So we're finally exiting the lab in some cases, a little bit slower than some of us would like, but we are starting to make progress in getting to the point with blockchain technology that we're actually able to derive business value from it. Besides all of the societal benefits that come with it, depending on the use case and the company that you're working with. So getting beyond a proof of concept is still quite rare, as those numbers indicate. A lot of companies are doing great stuff with R&D work and the experimentation phase, and they're developing a lot of nice and shiny POCs that have great user experiences. But for most, that's where it stops, unfortunately. It remains an innovation exercise or really like a marketing event that they've done a proof of concept. And we see the headlines quite regularly about company X, Y, or Z, or government X, Y, or Z has piloted something or tested something, but it still remains something more for marketing and innovation at this point in time. So that jump to production, first of all, of course, identifying the use case, calculating a business case, and executing a technical proof of concept for it are what usually is where most stop. But getting into production pilots and full rollout are the next steps, of course. Another interesting finding from Gartner in that survey is that it takes 9 to 15 months to go from the idea, the use case, to a delivered proof of concept. But that's, let's look at that a different way. Looking at it at another way, it takes more than a year for companies to fail. That's in an innovative environment. One of the mantras is, of course, fail fast. And taking 9 to 15 months to figure out that a proof of concept or a specific use case is not the right one is a very long time and a very big investment to make. With looking at proof of concepts that are executed by the Big Four and by a couple of others, proof of concepts can range anywhere from 500,000 euros to €1 million. So you get to something that takes a long time, costs a lot of money, and doesn't lead to business value. And that's really where a lot of companies are stuck at the moment. So what are the reasons for that? So some of the challenges that companies that are working with blockchain technology are quite fundamental, like skill scarcity. So do we have blockchain experts that we can rely on? And there is a second set of challenges besides the skills there's a set of 4 very distinct, specific, repeated challenges that every blockchain implementation has to overcome. So these are a set of 4 challenges that are extremely predictable. Everybody's going to face them if you're working with blockchain tech. So let's dissect those a little bit. First, looking at the skills scarcity. So indeed, skill scarcity and the 4 challenges we'll cover in the next couple minutes. Today, these are figures from a European context. Less than 1% of developers are competent with blockchain tech. So we have 1 in 100 developers is able to build something productive that we can put in production. That's a very small set. And if we combine that with the 2020 figures from LinkedIn about the most sought after hard skills in the market, that is blockchain. So what the market is looking for right now in the move from research and R&D activity into production is the demand for blockchain developers is skyrocketing. So the 2020 hard skills in demand according to LinkedIn, the number 1 is blockchain. And the caveat there is that in 2019, blockchain wasn't even on that list. So it's gone from nowhere to top of the list in the course of 2020. So we have the combination of limited supply, less than 1%, and demand that's really peaking. So what are the typical responses that companies can take? And one of the first responses, like we have a major shortage. We need to invest in building an in-house team to get a good developer up to a good blockchain developer is typically about an 18 to 24 month journey, making sure that they have the skills that we need in order to put a use case in production. The downside with that is, of course, that the developers, as they are the number 1 sought after profile in the job market for hard skills, there's a good chance they're going to leave either to a competitor or to start their own company. The second thing, the typical response is, let me insource talent, so I can work with a consultancy company that has blockchain developers. Now that's a quick solution. Don't have to worry about the brain drain after we've invested 18 to 24 months. However, it does, of course, create a dependency. Now I need those experts from that external company to service the application that we built and we put in production. So it creates a long-term dependency. Besides that, another option, which is a good option as well, is joining a consortium. So the consortium has already been formed. All the stakeholders are onboarded. We need to onboard as well. The use case is well defined. So it seems like a natural choice, just join a consortium. And of course, that's very valid. The only potential downside to that is that the use case, as I said, is defined. And we've got maybe 1 vote in deciding what else will the consortium do and what other types of applications will we build. So a bit limited flexibility and prospect of setting up new use cases that are particularly interesting to my organization might be more difficult to achieve. The fourth option, which is also a natural response, is to insource solutions. So I'm going to take the option of, I want to do KYC on chain so that we can share for KYC, AML, whatever it might be. So I insource a blockchain-based solution for that. And then the trade finance team wants to do something with blockchain technology. They want to join another solution. They have a vertical solution for trade finance. And then, the payments department wants to do the same thing. They insource a solution. And what we end up with, of course, in doing this through time is that we have spaghetti in the back end. None of these vertical solutions are interoperable. So we need to find ways to make them interoperate. And that's a big challenge as well. So there are 4 typical responses that each have their drawbacks. And that's, looking at the skill scarcity, it is cited by ABI research as the number 1 inhibitor to blockchain technology adoption currently. So the skill scarcity is a tough one to overcome. Looking a bit further into, here we go. Now, so that's the skill scarcity, but those 4 issues and 4 other challenges that every blockchain implementation needs to overcome. What is the first one? And this, you'll see these 4 challenges, they kind of follow an implementation timeline. So first of all, if I've decided I've got a use case selected and the business case is worked out and I've secured a budget to go ahead with it, first of all, we need to decide is this going to run in our data center? Are we going to put it in the cloud? We have to, if we're doing it in our data center, configuration of the firewall and different proxy settings. I've got to install the nodes, get them running properly, and set up a monitoring system to make sure for the network and for the use case I'm going to do to make sure that it's running stably and continuously. So that process of setting up the infrastructure of the network from scratch can typically take 3 to 4 months, in my experience, to get that done. And at that point, we're 3 to 4 months in, and we have our network and our nodes of the network up and running. At that point, okay, now we've got the infrastructure in place. Let's build the use case. And just looking at, jumping ahead. So looking at that one, so the network setup, we map out the workflow for the use case end to end, including all of the different stakeholders involved in the end-to-end flow. And we identify what are the existing systems that have data in them that are relevant for a use case that we need to pull from the off-chain world into the on-chain world. So when we have all that information, we define a data model and we can start to program the set of smart contracts that will deliver for that use case. Before we can do so, we've selected a protocol in the first step. Now we need to install all of the developer tools required for that specific protocol. That can be, and do that on the laptop. That's 5 to 10 tools depending on which protocols have been selected. But there's the challenge of defining or identifying what are the proper tools. Are they the most recent versions? So it's a lot of Googling around to figure out what's the best practice tool set for a given protocol. And when we have the workflow, and then we're ready to build. So we can start encoding that data model into smart contracts. And when we have the workflow, the data model encoded in the smart contracts, of course, we need to audit those smart contracts to ensure that we're not introducing vulnerabilities. And we need to test these smart contracts very extensively to ensure that they can scale according to the forecast that we have in our use case and business case. So now we're ready to deploy the smart contracts onto the network that we set up. And to get through that process, we're looking probably 2 to 4 months. And this is really coinciding with the findings of Gartner. So we're somewhere around 7 or 8, maybe 9 months into our blockchain journey. And we've executed a proof of concept. Our marketing colleagues are excited. They make a press release, and we show that we're an innovative bank or company. That's great, but of course, it's still not delivering any business value. So what the next part in that journey is integration. So our press release from the marketing department got a lot of attention. Management says, okay, let's move ahead. So our proof of concept from a technical perspective, at least, proved that we can gain big back office efficiencies, 60% cut in required workload, whatever it might be. Okay, so let's get it done. But then the real challenge starts. None of the protocols that a blockchain speak natively with our existing systems. So we rushed to get the proof of concept done. It took us 7, 8, 9 months. And now we have to interoperate with Swift and Temenos and our in-house credit decision model and the system that powers that. So where do we start? There's getting the integration with existing systems. At this point in our journey as a innovation manager or business leader that's working on the use case, we didn't foresee the 4 to 18 months of integration work in our resource planning. Well, yeah. So what do we do? So we've got to, after we've done that assessment of the integration lift required to put it into production, we got to find resources to do that. So another challenge to overcome. So the integration challenge, it's can take anywhere to 4 to 18 months, and have to fight to get resources to do it. Looking a step further, assuming we get through that, and these are not necessarily chronological, of course. But issue 4 is centered around scaling a network to an ecosystem of stakeholders. Blockchain is a team sport. We manage, if you're not onboarding other parties in that value stream or that process or the core process that your company is doing, if we're not onboarding other stakeholders, then use a database. Don't use blockchain technology. So, but where did we get to? So far, we managed to get the application and the smart contracts for it fully integrated in our systems. And in our process mapping at the beginning, value stream mapping, we identified that there are 4 other companies that need to be connected in order for the data that they're holding to be pulled on chain as well. So they need to provide data into the network so that those back office processes that we are built our business case on can really be optimized, and we can remove needs for reconciliation of data between us and third parties that are in that value stream. So how are we going to onboard them? They need to set up their node in the network. They also need to test thoroughly if their node's working. They need to develop a monitoring interface. They need to ensure that it's running smoothly. They need to integrate their systems. So the whole journey starts again. And all of that is non-trivial, to say the least. And it takes a long time to complete with, in this fictitious example, 4 stakeholders that need to be integrated. So these are, kind of the 4 key issues that naturally follow the implementation timeline of most blockchain projects. So whether it's the skills scarcity, the vast shortage of qualified and competent blockchain developers, or it's the 4 challenges, a lot of companies are getting stuck in experiments. I'm just doing a time check. I will go a little bit faster here. But it's clear that a new approach for blockchain implementation is required. What SettleMint has built is kind of like a WordPress or Stripe. And what WordPress does for websites, Stripe does for payments, SettleMint is doing for blockchain. So we built a low-code solution that enables companies to leverage their in-house talent. So you don't need to be a blockchain developer to build those blockchain applications. You can deliver it using our low-code platform in a fraction of the time. And the process is really quite simple. Set up the infrastructure. So select your cloud, select your protocol, and select different tools you want to use for building your use case. The IDE is full of already audited smart contract templates to cover about 85% of the workload in building the use case. And then we have the integration studio to get you through that 4 to 18 month journey in a couple of weeks. And finally, scaling the consortium, we have an onboarding process built into it. So in a couple of clicks, I can set the rules for new members that are joining and have them onboard in a seamless way. And they go through the same process of onboarding into the ecosystem and the network. So everyone is up and running with the UIs and dashboards that the DevOps guys and the systems admins need in order to have the system up and running and the use case delivered. I'll finish with one. There's a number of use cases here, but I'll just finish with one quote. So this is just a reaction from one of our clients. They built a food supply chain tracking use case for Carrefour here in Belgium. And basically what they managed to do, they had planned for about, it was close to 6 months for the blockchain integration. With SettleMint's product, they completed that in a weekend and 4 days of testing, which is about as strong a testament as any to the speed with which use cases can be delivered using the SettleMint product. And with that, I'll wrap up. There is a QR code there on the screen. We prepared together with Frankfurt School Blockchain Center a mini book on capital markets use cases for DLT. If you'd like to learn more about some of the work we've done and our thoughts, and also the Frankfurt School Blockchain Center's thoughts on DLT and capital markets, please have a scan of that. And thank you very much.
Thank you. One last question. I think we have time for this, right? Okay, 30 seconds. Okay. Does the scarcity of developers refer to developers familiar with the developments of blockchain technology itself, or also to developers for application based on existing blockchain services?
Yeah, so that scarcity is about developers who can actually build something that that a company would want to put in production. So it's really having the experience with the protocols, with how does a blockchain function, but being able to actually program the use cases.
Okay, great. Then thank you very much for your insights, Matthew.